Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm actually going to show you my Egyptian walking onions and tell you why I think you should be growing them. So this is one of my well-intentioned perennial food gardens. All this stuff here is all the asparagus I missed. So next year we'll definitely need to get on harvesting more. But when we originally moved here, we were short on funds. We had just moved and we wanted to use the soil that was here. And what's here are thistles. Lots and lots of thistles. And after 5 years of extensively weeding this garden over and over and over again, I'm calling it quits. And so what I'm going to do today is pull back a lot of the weeds, because you see the invasive plants. So I've got chickweed, which has invaded everywhere, and all of my alpine, I think they're called alpine strawberries, they're like an ever-bearing strawberry, are being choked out by thistles. So even this plan is just not going well. The only thing that seems to be doing well is Good King Henry, which is this stuff here. It's a perennial green. And if you haven't seen my video on why you should have perennial food sources, I'll link that so you guys can watch. But today I'm going to be working with my Egyptian walking onions, and I'll talk a bit about them. But first I'm going to get to some weeding, and then we'll talk about why you should be growing these. One of the things we talk a lot about here, my husband and I, are what is it that our goals are, and our hopes and dreams for the garden spaces, and the work that we're doing. And it's becoming increasingly evident that as my herbal practice grows and the number of classes and workshops that I run every summer extends and grows, that the time that we can dedicate to the vegetable garden wanes. And a lot of what we have created here is more high maintenance than we had realized. Part of that has to do, there's a few things that we've come to realize after being here for 5 growing seasons. One, this is the longest we've ever, you've probably heard me talk about this before, the longest we've ever been anywhere in one space this long. And so we didn't quite realize how big certain perennial plants would get and how much space things would require. And so it's really caused us to sort of stop and reflect. And we don't do this full time. We're not farmers. And so some of the things that we're talking about are ways to make our lives easier, and some of the mistakes that maybe we had made. And so I'll turn the camera around and talk a little bit about these perennial beds. The hope and the dream was that we would have ever-bearing strawberries here. This is also on some of the beds where we have rhubarb, of course our asparagus, I have Good King Henry, Egyptian walking onions, like all this beautiful stuff, right? That was all supposed to marry and be together. And it just didn't quite turn out that way. And it's ending up to be a lot more work than we had thought. And so even just managing pathways and garden pathways has turned out to be a lot more work and effort. So I'll turn the camera around and tell you what the plan and the dream is for this, and then I will show you the Egyptian walking onions and talk a little bit about how they grow. Please keep in mind, this is October 4th. We're in the middle of a heat wave. It is stinking hot. It's hot, yeah. Like 28 degrees Celsius hot for October 4th. We're a zone 4. This is not normal, but it's getting cold soon. And I'm a little behind with my Egyptian walking onions. I'm actually a lot behind, but I know my plan and what I'm going to do, so I'll talk to you about it. And yeah, I'm going to do exactly what I said I was going to do. Turn the camera around. So I think it was 2 years ago when we redid the whole garden. And so this is not our first, reincarnation of this garden. And over here, we used tarps before we put the stone down. And while there are some weeds coming through, not a lot. See there, you can even see. Right, we do need to get another delivery of stone and kind of bulk this up a bit. And most of the weeds in this area, as you can see, were where the garden boxes met the tarps. But along the edge pathways, I decided to use landscaping fabric. Can anyone tell me what this stuff is actually for? Because it certainly is not a weed barrier. So these pathways have become an absolute, look at this, an absolute nightmare. And now I have weeding of pathways to do too. So our plan is actually to pull these perennial beds all the way back to the asparagus. We're going to keep the asparagus because I've done a ton of reading, and please let me know in the comments if you know better than I do that it doesn't really like being transplanted. And I mean, this stuff's 5 years old now. It's on its fifth, it'll be on its 5th year next year. I don't want to risk moving it. So we're actually going to extend the pathways and really widen it, because as you can see, it's actually quite narrow and it's encroached upon our walking area. So the plan is actually to pull all the stone back, lay down tarp, and then do stone and these walkways. So that means that I need to move my Egyptian walking onions. The plan for the strawberries is actually kind of right where I am here. I want to create like another entranceway into the garden and get the two, in the United States they're called green stalks. I'd love to be able to get those, but golly, between the exchange rate and then the shipping, very expensive. But actually to do my strawberries in kind of towers like that, and then keep them off the ground. And so the squirrels and stuff won't be able to get to them either. I'm gonna turn the camera around. Let's talk about Egyptian walking onions. I don't know if these guys can be saved and then transplanted. Like, look, they're still producing strawberries. It's amazing. That's why we do like this kind, because we've got strawberry farms that don't spray, that are chemical free, close to us, that we can support for our large scale strawberry production. But here, excuse me, buddy, are the Egyptian walking onions. Okay, so they are a perennial onion, my friend, which means that you will have onions every single year without having to think about it. So this part here, and because we've had some warmth, what's actually happening, this is the original growth that happened in the spring, and it has since died back. But we have some new growth, so I can actually chop all this stuff up and dehydrate it for like a green onion powder, or what I actually like to do is chop it up, put it on cookie sheets and freeze it, and then I can use it for omelets and stuff all winter long. But, blurry, they produce this entire plant is edible. So this part here is actually an onion bulb. And I'm not ready to pull them yet, because my plan is to actually transplant all of these guys and to put them bordering the edges of all of my garden beds. But in the spring, they'll produce this beautiful green stalk, and if you let them, instead of producing flowers, they produce onion sets on the top. Not only are these edible, you can actually pick these apart and plant them, and they will produce their own Egyptian walking onion plant. How cool is that? And the reason they get their name, I mean, look, exactly what they did, right? It produced the stalk, it walked right here, plunked itself down, and if I don't do anything, these guys will root and produce a new plant right here. So in theory, they could be a little bit invasive, but it's pretty easy to manage. It's not like a fast invasive plant. So yeah, this part is also edible. So if I had gotten my acting gear, I could have come out earlier, harvest all of these for food. But instead, my plan is to actually harvest all of these and get them in the garden boxes as almost like a border for every box. Because onions tend to do well with most crops in terms of companion planting. But these guys too here. You know what? Let's just pull one. Let's just pull one so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Look at that. So you can eat this part, which is exactly what I'm going to do. You can transplant these guys and move them, and you can eat the green part as well. What are you up to?
Well, I'm picking raspberries. Picking raspberries and then immediately eating them afterward.
Amazing.
I'm probably eating like 7.
So this would be another crop, my friends, that I would suggest that you get. So these are ever-bearing raspberries, which means we get our big crop in the fall. And when I mean big, I mean, oh, there's ladybugs on them too. But we are picking bowls and bowls and bowls of raspberries every day. Every day. So we'll get a small amount in the spring, but fall is when we get our big crop. For us, for me especially, the big thing is that I need this garden to be lower maintenance. So when we redid the pathways, that was part of it. It was less weeding, less work, because before it was just, I resented being out here. I was outside every day, pulling out thistles, weeding constantly, and everything seemed to be invasive no matter what it was that I was working with. And I wanted to bring the joy back into gardening again. So a lot of these shifts and these changes, so moving the Egyptian walking onions, putting them in the raised beds, that's going to be part of that plan, widening these pathways, and really just reducing the amount, looking at what are we good at growing, what are we really bad at growing, and where can we source it somewhere else, and how can we make this less work. And it's learning. But long and short of this video, I really want you to look into perennial food sources, because we have an abundance of raspberries. We have an abundance of rhubarb. We have a sorrel, and we have Good King Henry, which are perennial greens. We have strawberries, we have onions, we have asparagus. So we have food that even if we have a really hard year, comes back every single year. So if you can find someone local to you that has Egyptian walking onions and you can get some of the little bulbs from them, do that. If not, you can order them online. I highly recommend it, because who doesn't want perennial onions? Now, if you've got any questions, of course, you know what to do. Drop it in the comments below. If you're interested in this whole homesteading gig and you're kind of like me and you've got a job and you're busy and you got kids or one kid or whatever, and you're just starting out and you need some guidance, I encourage you to snag the free copy of the magazine I write for called My Grounded Home. It might be right up your alley. And until next time, this is Corinne from Spirea Herbs, wishing you health and wellness.